Rain splashed across the hood of Adrian Vale's black Aston Martin as he stepped out, slamming the door harder than necessary. His jaw clenched, his breath sharp. The message on his phone still burned in his mind. An embossed invitation card from his ex-fiancée, Eleanor Grant. "You're cordially invited to celebrate our engagement," it read. Beneath it, the smiling face of the man she'd chosen over him, his former business rival. Adrian exhaled, half laughing, half scowling. "Engagement, huh? Let's make it memorable." He turned toward the street corner, where a woman in a damp hoodie sat under a flickering streetlight, hugging a duffel bag. Her eyes, sharp, defiant, met his. She didn't beg, didn't flinch. She just looked tired of being invisible. He walked toward her. "You hungry?" She raised an eyebrow. "That depends. You buying out of pity or guilt?" He smirked. "Neither. I need company. A date, actually." The woman tilted her head, trying to read him. "You're asking a homeless woman to be your date?" "I'm asking someone with attitude," Adrian replied smoothly, glancing at her worn boots. "My ex is getting engaged. I'd like to attend with someone who can make her regret breathing." She laughed, a dry, genuine laugh. "You're serious?"
Deadly.
"What's in it for me?" He slid a black card from his wallet. 5,000. Tonight. And if you play your part well, another 5 after. Her eyes widened slightly, but she masked it quickly. "You think money can make anyone fit in your world?" He leaned closer.
No. But confidence can.
"And something tells me you've got plenty of that." She hesitated, then stood. Rain plastered her hair against her face, but there was power in her gaze.
Fine.
"What's the dress code?" "Elegant. Dangerous." "Then let's make your ex choke on her champagne," she said, extending her hand. "Name's Aria." "Adrian," he replied, shaking it firmly. Within an hour, they were at a luxury salon downtown. Aria sat under soft lights, watching stylists swarm around her. Layers of grime were replaced by silk, her hair swept up elegantly. When she finally stood before the mirror, Adrian paused, genuinely taken aback. The woman before him wasn't the girl on the sidewalk anymore. She looked commanding. She noticed his silence and smirked. "Don't look so shocked. I clean up well." "I'm not shocked," he murmured. "I'm impressed." On the drive to the engagement, the tension hummed between them. He tried to study her reflection in the tinted window. There was something too composed about her. Not the hesitation of someone new to wealth, but the restraint of someone who'd known it once. At the event, chandeliers glowed like constellations. The elite murmured in polished accents, eyes darting toward Adrian the moment he entered, and then toward the stunning stranger on his arm. Eleanor froze mid-laugh, her champagne flute trembling slightly. "Adrian, you came," she managed, forcing a smile. "Wouldn't miss it," he said smoothly. "This is Aria." Eleanor's gaze lingered on Aria's diamond earrings, the custom gown that hugged her silhouette. "Lovely to meet you," she said, voice laced with acid. "And what do you do, Aria?" Aria's smile was polite but sharp. "I dabble in markets. Real estate. Recovery assets. I suppose you could say I'm good at turning loss into opportunity." Eleanor blinked, unsure if it was sarcasm. Adrian hid a grin. Throughout the evening, Aria glided through the crowd effortlessly, speaking to investors, joking with senators' wives. Her poise left people whispering. Adrian found himself watching her more than anyone else. Her posture, her tone, the way she carried authority without effort. At one point, an older banker named Harrington chuckled. "So, Ms. Aria, you seem to know quite a bit about global finance. Where did you learn all that?" She sipped her wine calmly. "When you lose everything, you either learn how the system works or you get eaten alive by it. I chose the first." He leaned forward, intrigued. "So you've traded before?" "Traded? I've rebuilt portfolios for billionaires who didn't even know their assets were bleeding value," she replied. "Global real estate, asset recovery, foreign capital movement, they all follow the same rhythm. When fear rises, liquidity falls. That's when I buy." Adrian almost choked on his drink. The guests were captivated. Arya continued, her tone confident, passionate. You see, she said, markets are emotional creatures. Everyone thinks it's about numbers, but it's about fear and ego. I've seen men sell generational estates because of a headline, and I've seen women double their worth because they trusted patience over panic. The market rewards the calm. Eleanor's fiancé, Thomas, tried to scoff. That's easy to say when you're not actually managing millions. Arya's eyes locked on his. Oh, but I was. Until someone decided to play God with other people's futures. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. Adrian noticed Eleanor's face pale. Arya, you really know how to command a room, he said softly as they drifted to the dance floor.
Habit, she said.
People respect confidence. Or fear it. As they danced, the air between them shifted. No longer a staged performance, but something deeper. Adrian's hand lingered at her back, his voice quieter now. You said you lost everything once. What happened? Arya looked up at him, eyes glimmering under the chandeliers. Let's just say someone powerful thought they could rewrite my life. They erased my family, our name, our future. But erasing me? She leaned in slightly. That's harder than it looks. He searched her face. Your family was in business? You could say that, she murmured. My father was a real estate magnate until a scandal fabricated by his partner destroyed him. We lost everything overnight. The media called it fraud. The truth? It was betrayal. Adrian tightened his hold.
Who?
She smiled faintly. Not tonight, Adrian. Tonight's about you getting your revenge, remember? He shook his head, whispering, I think you might be rewriting that plan. The song faded. Around them, whispers rippled through the guests. Eleanor was visibly restless, watching the two of them like prey observing its hunter. As the night wound on, Arya excused herself to the terrace. Adrian followed a few moments later, finding her staring at the skyline, hair glimmering in the moonlight. You're not what you seem, are you? He said softly. She turned, half smiling. Neither are you, Mr. Vale. People see your suits and your money. They don't see the man still chasing something he lost. He took a step closer. And what about you? She met his gaze steadily. I'm chasing peace. Everything else is noise. He nodded slowly. You're extraordinary. Her lips curved. Careful, Adrian. Flattery sounds dangerous coming from a man who bought his date for the night. He laughed. Then maybe I should ask for a refund. You're stealing my attention. She chuckled softly, but said nothing more. The tension between them was undeniable. Later that night, as Adrian drove her back, silence filled the car, heavy, electric. Finally, he said, You handled that room like you owned it. She shrugged. I used to own rooms like that. The car slowed at a red light. Adrian turned to her. You're not telling me everything, Arya. She smiled faintly. And you're not asking the right questions. The light turned green, and he pressed the accelerator, eyes flicking toward her reflection in the window. Something inside him told him this night wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something he couldn't yet name. In the following days, Adrian couldn't shake her from his mind. It had been 3 days since the engagement party, yet every glance, every word, every flicker of Arya's mysterious smile haunted him. He had spent years building empires, winning wars in boardrooms, and making people fear his name. Yet one woman from a rain-soaked street corner had quietly dismantled every piece of armor he'd ever built. That morning, he called his assistant. Martin, I need information. On Arya. Everything you can find. Her past, her family, her records. Martin hesitated. Sir, is this personal or business? Adrian's jaw flexed. Just do it. When the report came, it was thinner than he expected.
Too thin.
Sir, Martin said carefully over the phone, she doesn't seem to exist. No bank accounts, no school records, no ID issued in the last decade. But I did find something. 10 years ago, there was a scandal involving a man named Frederick Donovan. His company, Donovan Holdings, was accused of fraud and collapsed overnight. His daughter's name was Arya. Adrian went still.
Donovan.
Yes, sir. The company was taken over by Grant Enterprises. The case was led by Walter Grant, Eleanor's father. Adrian hung up slowly, a cold realization spreading through him. Everything clicked: her knowledge of markets, her controlled poise, her quiet anger whenever Eleanor's name came up. Arya wasn't a coincidence. She was a storm that had come to reclaim what was stolen. That evening, he called her.
Dinner.
My place.
8.
There was silence on the line. Then she said softly, "That sounds more like a command than an invitation." He smiled faintly. "Then disobey me." A pause. "I'll be there." When she arrived, she was radiant but cautious, wrapped in calm defiance. She looked around his penthouse, the city lights painting her face in gold and shadow. "Nice view," she murmured. "You like looking down on people?" He smirked. "Helps me remember where I came from." "Must be nice," she said, folding her arms. "Having a place to look down from." "Sit," he said, gesturing toward the table. "Wine." She accepted, but her eyes never left his. "So, what's this about, Adrian?" He poured her glass slowly. "You tell me. You've been living under a different name for years." Arya Donovan. The glass trembled slightly in her hand before she set it down. "You did your research." "I had to. You dropped too many clues." She looked away, her voice low but steady. "Then you know what your ex's family did to mine. They accused my father of fraud, forged documents, bought witnesses, and buried the truth under money. We lost everything. He died a year later, heart failure, they said. But it wasn't his heart that failed, it was justice." Adrian's hands tightened into fists. "And Eleanor?" "She helped," Arya said bitterly. "She leaked stories to the press, played the innocent fiancé while her family destroyed us. I didn't plan to see her again until you showed up with that ridiculous proposal on that street corner." He stared at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "You could have told me. Would you have believed me?"
He sighed.
"I don't know, but I do now." They stood there, silent, the air between them thick with things neither could say. Finally, he took a step closer. "Eleanor's still dangerous. But she's sloppy. And I have the resources to prove what she did." Arya met his gaze. "You're offering to help me?" "I'm offering to finish what they started." She smiled faintly, though her eyes glistened. "You're insane." "Maybe. But I've been worse." The following week, rumors exploded across media sites. Photos from the engagement night were everywhere. Arya's face circled in red ink. Headlines screamed, "Mystery woman at Vale Grant Gala, con artist or gold digger?" It was Eleanor's move. Arya sat in a cafe, surrounded by whispers, the cold sting of humiliation tightening her chest. When she returned to her rented apartment, Adrian was already there, pacing, furious. "She did this," he snapped. "Eleanor's trying to bury you again. But not this time." "And what are you going to do?" Arya asked quietly. He looked at her, determination cutting through the anger. "I'm going to give her the one thing she can't control, truth." 2 nights later, the grand business gala of the year arrived, a sea of diamonds, silk, and ambition. Eleanor Grant was the guest of honor, glowing with self-importance, surrounded by reporters. When Adrian entered with Arya on his arm again, the room buzzed like electricity. Eleanor's smile faltered. Adrian walked straight to the podium before anyone could stop him. "Good evening," he began, voice calm but slicing through the noise. "Tonight was meant to celebrate success. But I believe true success starts with integrity." The crowd hushed. Cameras turned. He continued, 10 years ago, a man named Frederick Donovan was accused of crimes he did not commit. His company was stolen from him, and his family destroyed. The orchestrators of that crime stand in this very room." Eleanor's laugh was brittle. "Adrian, what are you doing?" He ignored her, nodding to his assistant at the back. A large projector came alive behind him, displaying a series of documents and transfers. "These," Adrian said, his tone unwavering, "are financial records from Grant Enterprises. Offshore accounts. Forged contracts. All tied to the Donovan case." And this, he pointed at one document, bears your father's signature, Eleanor. Alongside your own. Gasps spread through the crowd. Eleanor's fiancé turned to her in disbelief. You signed these? She stammered. That's absurd. Those are fake. Adrian cut her off. They were verified by forensic analysts this morning. You framed an innocent man to save your family's empire. You called it strategy. I call it corruption. The room erupted in murmurs. Reporters raised cameras. Flashlights flickered like fireworks. Eleanor's mask cracked. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, but I do, Adrian said, voice low and lethal. Because his daughter is standing right there.
He gestured to Arya.
She's the one you tried to erase. All eyes turned to Arya. She stood tall, every inch of her radiating strength and poise. Eleanor's voice wavered. You're lying. She's. Arya stepped forward. Say my name, Eleanor. Eleanor froze. Go on. Arya pressed, voice trembling but firm. Say it. It's Arya Donovan, the girl you called a fraud, the one your father destroyed. The crowd went silent. Then murmurs rippled, sharp and unforgiving. A man from the press shouted, Miss Grant, do you have any comment on these accusations? Eleanor's face blanched. Security whispered to one another. Someone from the Federal Bureau approached the stage quietly, speaking into a radio. Within minutes, Eleanor's father's name was trending online. Investigations reopened. The empire that had ruined the Donovans began to collapse in real time. Afterward, Adrian and Arya stood outside the gala, the night air heavy with relief and disbelief. It's over, she whispered. He turned to her, eyes soft. It's just beginning. She laughed shakily. You've just declared war on half the city's elite. He smiled. Then I hope they're ready to lose. Over the next few months, Arya rebuilt what was lost. With Adrian's support, she launched Donovan Strategies, a consulting firm dedicated to asset recovery and ethical investments. Her insight drew headlines, her poise silenced critics. At a private networking event, a charming investor approached. Miss Donovan, I'd be honored to work with you, he said. You've got the entire city talking. She smiled politely.
Good.
Let them talk. Across the room, Adrian watched, amusement and jealousy flickering in his eyes. Weeks later, Arya's car was vandalized. Threatening notes appeared at her door. She tried to shrug it off, but Adrian didn't. He tightened her security, moved her into his penthouse for safety. One night, she found him asleep on the couch, phone in hand, exhaustion etched into his face. She covered him with a blanket, brushed a hand over his hair, whispering, You've done enough, Adrian. More than enough. When he woke, she was still there, sitting beside him, watching the city dawn. He looked at her quietly.
Arya.
I love you. She froze. Adrian. I'm not ready for her. He nodded gently. Then I'll wait.
No deadlines.
No pressure. Just us. 3 months later, he took her to a private beach.
No cameras. No chaos.
Just them and the sound of waves. He handed her a small box, eyes steady. You once said people rebuild or get eaten, he said softly. You rebuilt me. So this. He opened the box, revealing a diamond ring. Is me rebuilding us. Tears filled her eyes. You sure you want the girl who once slept under a bridge? He smiled. That girl saved me. She laughed through tears. Then yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, the sea wind wrapping around them like a vow. Months later, under a sunlit sky, they married in a seaside garden. Arya's vow was simple. You taught me that love is the only true recovery. Adrian whispered back, and you taught me what wealth really means. As the guests cheered and the waves crashed beyond, Arya leaned close and whispered, Adrian, there's something you should know.
I'm pregnant.
Twins. He froze, then laughed, holding her tight. Then the future just doubled. They kissed again, the sound of the ocean blending with laughter and applause, the final redemption of two broken souls who had found home in each other. If you felt the power of the story, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge is love that lasts.